On today's show, part two of my chat with Brian Sieman, our play-by-play announcer, talking about this past season of Clippers basketball and this upcoming season, the Intuit Dome, and more. Please throw a subscribe and get us to 6,000 subscribers after this one. So thankful for Brian for making the time. Here's part two with Brian Sieman on today's Locked On Off-Season Clippers. Woo!
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Wow, that's amazing. When you were backing up the Wolves, was it Tom Hannaman that was the play-by-play man?
Hanny was on TV. I was backing up a guy named Chad Hartman, who is still in the area. He's a very, very smart guy. He does his own show in Minnesota, has had his own show for over 30 years. Hanny was my guy. Hanny passed away in 2020. He was a guy that dispensed advice, and there were days when I felt like this isn't going to happen. I just don't think I should do this. And he'd pull me aside and he says, you just got to keep going. We all go through these. You got to keep going. So I think of Tom Hannaman every time I get into Target Center.
That's awesome. So you left when Garnett left, essentially.
I like to think he left after I left. He thought this is no longer a cool play. No, it was cool. He was rough. It was rough with KG. He was not happy that year, and he was the kind of guy, and I respect it 100%, that he came into the league and then he formed his friendships. And after he made it, if you are not in that bubble, you are not getting in that bubble. And I didn't try to get in that bubble. I didn't try to do anything like that. He could be a bit grisly, but I respected it. I respected him, and he was great for that organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we've been blessed to have you with the Clippers. Obviously, I listened to you on radio for many, many years. Let me know, what's the biggest differences between radio and TV? Which one do you prefer? All that transition.
I think they're just so both awesome. They're just so fun. Radio, you're the only guy. You're the radio, you're the producer, you're the director, you're all of it. And you get to choose the content, you get to choose where the game goes. And, it's awesome that way. And you get to be super descriptive, which was always like a fun challenge that I just like, how else can I make this visual for the listener? I love that. On television, what I love the most is the collaboration. So I mentioned your solo essentially, your solo essentially on radio, you're the opposite on TV, and the people that we work with in the production truck are awesome. So it's a collaboration. I get to work with people like Jim Jackson and Mike Fratello, and I learn something every night. Like I learn something every night from what they're saying, what they're looking at. And they both have two different perspectives that are both great. But we have a producer and a director that I get to talk with and talk back. Hey, can I get a shot of this? Hey, yeah, we're going to get this. Producer will come in and what do you think about this graphic after this play? I mean, and it's just a constant communication during play is how it works out. So if you told me I had to do one or the other, I would just say surprise me, and I'd be a happy guy. It's I'm very, very lucky to have done both.
Do you think you were better at either? At one of them?
Still working on TV, still working to get to a place where I feel good about it. There are nights where I think that was a good show. And then there are many nights where I'm like, man, you are fooling a lot of people right now. On radio, I felt like I knew what to do every night. And I felt like I wasn't learning as much every night as I still do on TV. And that was really one of the great thrills was I felt like a student again when I went to TV. Whereas on radio, I was trying to just keep pushing to do something different without trying to sound like I'm trying to be different. I don't know if that makes any sense. I felt like I had done enough on radio where I could sit down and call a pretty good game. And I don't want to say without trying, but without having to really think, what else do I need to do? Whereas on TV, I feel like there's 1,000 different choices, every single dead ball that you can make. And I'm still trying to find all the right decisions. I don't know if I ever will. I don't know if anybody does. But I enjoy the process.
Yeah, because in radio, you kind of just have to call what you're seeing because nobody can see what you're seeing. So let me ask you this. You had a lot of, I don't know if you consider it pressure, but the way we're looking at it from the outside, you're not just taking the job of any play-by-play man. You are taking over a guy who, like, probably besides my sister and my parents, his voice was like, you know, heard the most. Yeah, in my living room. Like, Ralph Lawler is the Clippers for me. He is. If I had to pick one figure in Clipper history that represents the franchise, I would always go with Ralph. How did you feel not only just filling in those shoes, but you're ushering in a new era with the craziest offseason in franchise history, and you're beginning the journey for that. Like, the 213 era is with Brian Sieman's soundtrack, just like the Magic Johnson Showtime was with Chick Hearn's soundtrack. You are the soundtrack behind 213. How was that transition and the pressure of Ralph?
A lot on a lot of levels. Let me go back and just see how I felt about it. So I would say that if I was at an earlier stage in my career, I think I would have felt the pressure like a lot. And I think it would have really affected how I approached, how I felt, how much fun I was going to have. I was lucky enough to have been kind of a veteran. I think at that time, 13 to 15 years of NBA stuff, and 16 years, as a matter of fact, 16 years of calling NBA games. So I felt confident that I knew the league. And at the end of the day, look, like, I mean, when you fill in or take over, follow in the footsteps is a better word.
Yeah.
Of somebody like Ralph. I mean, so somebody's going to do that job. This is kind of basically the pep talk that I gave myself, and I felt good about it. I'm like, someone's doing this job. Okay. Someone's coming in. They can bring in an outsider, and that outsider is going to probably struggle to gain credibility unless they bring in a Kevin Harlan or a Mike Breen. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to have instant credibility, but I don't think that was the role. I don't think that's what they were trying to do. So I'm like, somebody's going to take this job. You've been here for 12 years. You know what you're talking about when it comes to Clipper history. Just be yourself. And it's easier said than done. I think that's kind of, you have credibility as far as, and I don't want to pretend like everybody liked what I did on radio, but they know that I'm a Clipper. They knew that I had lived these moments. They knew that, I was there for the 27-point comeback with the Memphis Grizzlies in round one, that I was here for Mike Dunleavy and Elton Brand. They know that I come in with some knowledge. And I think that went, I don't want to say a long way, it went a way with fans. And all I wanted to do was show that I respect the game. I respect their intelligence. I'm not going to start saying things that I don't believe are true. I still believe in that. But I'm not smelling the roses on that at all. There's still, it'll never be, Ralph will always be a part of the conversation. He should always be a part of the conversation. I have no issues with that at all. I just like to show up and call the games and be truthful, honest, respect the games, respect the opponent, respect the league. And I think that I hope that if there's anything that comes through, it's that in my shows.
I'm going to tell you a little something about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. It absolutely does. And you talked about how the fans perceived it. And I can speak for me. I didn't want anyone else to be the guy but you, because as you said, nice. you were a Clipper. We heard you on the radio, so it wasn't like we were hiring some new guy that we had to accept. You were already part of the family, so it was, for me, a no-brainer, and I was excited to see you on my TV. Now, you mentioned them briefly, and I want to ask about them as well. Working with the Zar and Jim Jackson. I heard what you said on Adam's show about how it's two totally different perspectives, but these two are as knowledgeable as it gets. How do you feel about having, working with each of them, but also having the alternating color commentator as opposed to like the, Ralph Lawler, Mike Smith, or Billy Mack and Stu Lance, like that guy every single night.
I don't look at it like I just look at it. Who do I get to work with tonight? We obviously get a schedule, so I know 3 or 4 games in advance who's coming and who's going.
Right.
I don't go, oh, I wish I had more games with X or Y or Z. I'm just super. I can't begin to tell you. Like I'm at an age now where I don't get starstruck as much anymore, which I miss. I miss that. The only people that could get me starstruck are things or items from my childhood.
Yeah. It's funny. My bad. Sorry to cut you off. It's funny you mentioned that. Last week, for the first time in my entire life, saw Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at the game I was doing PA for at Pepperdine, and you should have seen the adults freaking out like that. I hadn't seen.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And I would have been there with him for real. Straight up, I've been able to interview Kareem, and the second I did it, I was working a game with the Timberwolves, and this was in 2004, and I interviewed Kareem. And I'm working this. I'm still working the game. I called my girlfriend, now my wife. I'm like, you're never gonna believe what just happened. Oh my God! I just interviewed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was an airplane. He's also the all-time leading scorer in NBA history. All that kind of stuff. So it's the Kareems. When I saw Larry Bird, which wasn't from, it was maybe less than 10 years ago for the first time, I just stopped dead in my tracks.
Yeah.
So to get back to that, so like Mike Fratello was the coach of the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks, their local show was done by TBS, which was a superstation back in the 80s, meaning it was syndicated. So I got it in Des Moines, Iowa. I would watch Dominique.
The team that you had in Iowa locally?
WGN with the Bulls and Atlanta with the Hawks, but in Iowa. And I would watch Mike Fratello on the sidelines, and they would do like every once in a while, they would do like a package, and one of them was him cooking. And, being Italian and going over to Italy and doing it. And I've had that in my mind since I was in 4th grade. And then he got the job at NBC. And I sincerely just learned so much from him about the game of basketball, the way he broke it down. I truly am starstruck when I hang out with the Zar, and we are buddies. Like, I consider him family. So it's not like it's a awkward situation. I mean, he is family. I've been to his house. He talks about I bring my youngest son, who's a real hooper. I bring him with me to games, and they chop it up. So then we go to Jim Jackson. So I grew up in the Midwest. He went to Ohio State. You're too young to remember, but ESPN used to have a thing called Big Monday, which meant the Big Ten played every Monday night. And Iowa Hawkeyes were a big thing in the state. So whenever Iowa played Ohio State, I'd watch Jim Jackson. And I think this was a time when I just started to appreciate good players. Like, I rooted for Iowa, even though I don't like them anymore. I don't really care about them. I rooted for Iowa, but I got to see other players that I'm like, man, Jim Jackson is a good basketball player. And then I followed his career, and here we are so many years later. Jim is a stud, and he is go. The guy probably works 250 events a year. He just cannot. He's like a shark. He cannot sit still. Super knowledgeable, very down to earth. While he knows the game of basketball at a high level, he's got so many more things going on in his world that he's just very fun to be around. And you're educated on a lot of things with Jim. Awesome. I have the best job in the league. I sincerely believe that with those two guys, and our truck is just great. So yeah, man, it's a thing, man. Like, Mike Fratello has seen it all in the NBA, and to be able to have him sitting next to us. Fun story with the Zar. Mm-hmm. He, first of all, used to be like buddies with Frank Sinatra. Now, you're probably too young to appreciate it, but Frank Sinatra is
no, I love Frank Sinatra.
I'm a Frank Sinatra fan too. We're sitting in a game. This year, and this name might not mean anything to you, but for those who are a little older than I am, or who are very old souls, Frankie Valli, who was a big, I want to say a pop star back in the 50s, iconic figure. Your parents would know him. My parents would go crazy to hear him. Frankie Valli calls him in the middle of a game at halftime. And the Zar picks up, and he's talking to Frankie Valli, this iconic figure. And I'm like, who are we dealing with here? Who is Mike Fratello? This is the most interesting man in the world. He's a great man, and he's a good friend. That's most important of all that stuff.
That's awesome. I've always wanted to meet the Zar because he has this incredible historical knowledge. When you guys do go off on little tangents about the history of the game and Mike Fratello starts dipping into his bag of what he knows, I love it because, as you said, like there's so many things I wasn't alive to see. Like, I'm guessing you saw a bunch of great Dominique Wilkins stuff back in those days. And these kind of nuggets of information of how the game has changed, especially because the game aesthetically just looks so different. I love hearing that stuff. And Jim Jackson also has a very great understanding of the game in different eras and stuff like that.
And he's cool though. Like, Jim is
Yeah.
cool with all the players. So like we'll sit. This is a true story. Whenever we play the Lakers, LeBron comes over and daps him up. Now I don't know if this has ever been discussed, but think about this. Jim Jackson was an absolute stud. I don't know how to compare him now. I mean, he was a top 5 pick in the lottery and one of the best drafts in 1992. He's a top 5 pick in that draft. Think about this. That draft was in 1992. What year was LeBron born?
1984.
So you're telling me 8-year-old LeBron James didn't watch highlights of Ohio State's Jim Jackson and think to himself, that guy can play. I want to be like that guy. I don't know if it's ever been discussed, but there's in my mind, a 0% chance that LeBron did not watch Jim growing up and think, because Jim was a stud. Like you're talking, I don't think there were many players better at any class in 1992 than Jim Jackson. And so I'm a believer that LeBron has been partially inspired. I've never said that to Jim because I don't want his ego to get out of control, but I guarantee you that is a thing.
Yeah, I mean, LeBron always does say that he would have gone to Ohio State had he had a choice. Let me ask you this, because one of my friends that's an aspiring play-by-play guy would really want me to ask you this. How do you feel about the evolution of play-by-play broadcasting in the sense that nowadays it's almost like a podcast on air at times, as opposed to back in the day when it's like a little more informative, and you'll have the people now that's like, just talk about the game, you know, that kind of thing. How do you feel about that?
I feel it can. I don't mind it when it's not in the middle of a good game. So if the game is no longer, to me, this is how I look at it. And there's a balance to this, and it's not like I have the answer, but like when the game is sideways, let's say it's a 20-point game in the fourth quarter, I'm thinking, okay, the game is no longer the storyline here. Let's touch on the players that are playing, because if they are watching this game, they want to know about these players. So we'll talk about the Kobe Browns, we'll talk about the Brandon Bostons, and then after that, if you still have 6 minutes to kill, I want to talk about something interesting, you know? Now, is it basketball? Is it the Zar's marinara recipe? Is it Jim's least favorite candy on Halloween? I don't know the answer, but like I want it to be somewhat entertaining, and it can get you can get too far off path for sure, but I want there to be something that, whether it's a slight chuckle or something that in 3 weeks we can go back to, like a callback as a kind of little ha-ha moment. Like the Zar's recipe is always something that kind of comes up. I don't mind it. There's so much information out there now that you can talk about other games with credibility. Think about, in 1995, before there's League Pass, I mean, you're kind of stuck in what that game is. There's not social media, so you don't have all the information. You just have that game. That is all you have. I like that we can be more well-rounded and talk about different things with the appropriate measurement. I don't want it to take over a quarter. And I'm certainly guilty of probably talking about stuff that's not game related and turning it into a podcast about basketball. I don't want to do that too much. I want it to keep on the game with a little over there, a little over there, a little over there, and then you bring it back.
Fair enough. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Kids are always learning and growing, but as adults, sometimes we lose that curiosity and think that we have it all figured out and we know what we need in our lives. What's something you'd like to learn? Gardening, new language, maybe how to finally beat your best friend in bowling, maybe how to beat them in Monopoly. Therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder, because your back to school era can come at any age. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. So winding it down here, how do you feel about now that the 2-1-3 era is over? That's obviously that 5 years, your first 5 years as a play-by-play man. Reflecting on it, Paul George's tenure, I heard what you said on Adam's show, but just that overall era and I guess what it represents the Clipper history, and then ushering in this new team this season. How you feeling about that?
How do I feel about the two? It's just the biggest what if.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest what ifs in NBA history. There might be some others that some people can bring up, but not over the course of 6 years like we had. No one in the world will convince me otherwise that we don't have 2 titles if we have just bad luck, not the worst luck of all time. If we just had bad luck, we got 2 titles, maybe 3. No one is going to, there's not an argument in the world, whether it's a global pandemic, a crazy injury to Kawhi, or whatever. And this year, this situation that we had this year with Kawhi. I'm bummed for the front office. I just know that I felt they worked the margins really well. They did everything they could. They did the right thing. There's not a general manager, past, present, future. There's not an owner in that same timeline that wouldn't do what the Clippers did at that exact same price, period. And so, unfortunately, it didn't work out. We move on. I think many fan bases would just be shattered and devastated. We're a hardy bunch. We've got scars. Scars don't mean you're injured. They mean you're healed. We're going to move forward into Intuit Dome. And I tell you now, I've been there twice, maybe 3 times. Have you had a chance to go in there yet?
Yeah, I went for a tour a couple of weeks ago. I went to 2 tours over the last 3 months. So yeah, I've been. Go ahead. I was gonna ask you about that. So might as well go ahead.
It is. I'll readily admit I was emotional walking through. I was misty-eyed. I was like, I can't believe this is our home. And it's not just, there are arenas that have been made that are stock arenas that just to keep the team there. The city pitched in and they probably cut a corner here and cut a corner there. All that said, I'm glad the teams that we have are in the league in the cities that they are in, from Sacramento to Milwaukee to whatever, all these new arenas. This is not that. This was, what's the greatest arena in the world? Okay, let's better it. And that's what this is. Not only are the seats and what the fans will see every night amazing, the sound and atmosphere is going to be incredible, but the behind the scenes stuff for people like myself, the hallways they're just classy. The club rooms are amazing. The media dining is going to be insane. We have our own personal, like for TV, we have our own breakout room if we need to have meetings. There's going to be a private media room during the game, so Mike Fratello doesn't have to stand in a line 30 deep to go to the bathroom to get back in the third quarter. It is so special that I just can't. I think if you've been with us for a minute, you're gonna have some emotions going into that game and realizing it, even if it's a preseason game, realizing this is ours. I can't believe it is ours. And I've been there 3 times and I keep feeling like, what is going on here? The courtyard, that plaza, insane. Inside, insane. Food is great. The seats are crazy. And I was there, and I did talk about this with Adam Osland. I was there for the beta testing in July. 5,500 fans, no more than 6,000 scattered. Steve wanted to see how loud it got. So they're all from top to bottom. There's no real super concentrate. Got to 112 decibels. Whatever that means, I don't know. I was sitting where the visiting bench was, and I had to plug my ears. That's how piercingly loud it was. Imagine a major playoff game. Imagine a play-in game. Imagine something this year that we're going to face. It's going to be awesome. And give credit to Steve. He had the vision, and we are so lucky to have him as our owner. I mean it for real. And this is my go-to line. If Steve Ballmer fired me tomorrow, I would still tell you he's a good man and a great owner. I mean, that's Intuit Dome is all you need to see to know that. It's really going to be special.
That's amazing to hear. And yeah, I think surreal is the word. I don't know when it's going to hit and make me think like, wow, like this. I don't know when I'll be used to it, is basically what I'm saying. It's still so insane to me that we have this amazing place. You talked about the fans. Real quick, what do you think people miss about Clipper fans? Because there's all these narratives out there that we don't have a strong fan base, that we're not loud and all this. I mean, being around the fan base, I consider us the most loyal fan base in the NBA. What do you think people sleep like? Why do people sleep on Clipper fans, and what do they not get about Clipper Nation?
Well, it's easy to sleep on Clipper fans because listen, man, the Lakers are a gold standard in this league. I have nothing but respect for them. They've earned all the branding that they have. They've earned all the love that they get in this city. Our goal is not to be the Lakers. Our goal is to beat the Lakers and be a championship caliber team. So it's easy to get lost in that shuffle just locally. I would say that I don't know what the number would be. There are so many fans. When we start traveling to arenas, I remember seeing it first with Lob City. So I'd been here for 3 or 4 years pre-Lob City. And when we came to town, it was a ghost town. I mean, we were terrible. 22 win team. We get Blake, and then all of a sudden I start seeing Clipper jerseys all over in different arenas, like a lot of them. And now it just continues to grow to the point where I see a lot of them at Laker games. I saw a lot of them in the Lob City era, and I was like, wow, we are starting to make it. And when by make it is not we're taking the town from the Lakers. I'm not saying that. Yeah. What I will say about Clipper fans, and this is the best compliment I could give a fan base, and this is what makes me the most proud. You're a part of this. Our podcasts are part of this. We are reasonable. We are knowledgeable. We are realistic. We aren't saying, I mean, I won't go into, like, I don't listen to talk radio because some people on radio, they're, oh, well, we'll just trade. Well, why wouldn't the Mavericks trade Luka Doncic to the Lakers for 2 second rounders? He's going to walk anyway. Like, that's a legitimate argument that they will have and a discussion for fans to call in on. And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? And so our fan base is reasonable. We get it. We know who we are. We know our past. We accept it. We are optimistic going forward, but we're realistic about it. No one's saying, oh, the Clippers are winning the title this year. We got rid of Paul George. Now that's all we needed to do. Not one person is saying that. Not one. We are realistic, and I love that about us. And we're just an awesome family to be a part of. Like I said at the start of the show, I'm just to be a small part of it. I just feel so blessed to be with this organization at the times that I've been, even back in those early days. I think it just makes you appreciate what's to come even more, and I look forward to it.
Yeah. I mean, my last two questions are this season. How do you feel about the team?
I'm fired up. And I'm fired up because it gives me, I feel the vibes that we had. What was it? 21, 22, it was 21, 22. No Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
And that was my favorite season.
520
point comebacks between that and 18-19. Those are my two favorite years. That team fought every night. They feared if they knew that if they didn't play their best, they were going to get run off the floor. So they had to go out and play as hard as they could. And there were many nights they were just bested by the other team. Many nights they were better than the other teams because they just played harder. I think we're going to get that kind of vibe. Really fired up to watch Zoo and Terrence Mann. We know what Harden can do. We're hoping Kawhi can play many games, but those two guys, I think, are really going to have breakthrough years. And I hope Zoo is a Clipper for life. I just love him. I love what he brings. Same with Terrence. You know, to have a homegrown player like a Terrence have a breakthrough year would be amazing. I think that's one thing that has kind of held this organization back. We had Blake. He was on the rise for superstardom and to be our guy. Unfortunately, injuries kind of set him on a different path and ultimately to a different place. But I think this is going to be a fun year. I think the fans are going to enjoy it. And I think one thing, from afar, I wonder, people think, well, if you're not winning a title, this is a waste of a year. I've never felt that. I've always just enjoyed the year for what it is and overachieving what you think the expectations are. I think the expectations are we get a 6 seed. That's the highest. That's where I feel like if we can get that, I'd sign up today. And then do we have a healthy Kawhi Leonard and James Harden in round one? Do you want to play that team if you're a 3 seed? If you're Phoenix, if you're Denver, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying it's going to be a lot of fun this year, and having Intuit Dome as the backdrop is going to make it even better. I look forward to this, and I really believe in our front office. I believe in our ownership. I believe in this city in terms of it being something that is gravity to players. Intuit Dome is going to turn heads. It's going to be a game changer. So while we're thinking, oh, we're just going to be happy to get into the playoffs next year, maybe 2 years. In 2 years from now, it's going to be a different conversation. We're going to have money. We're going to have a lot of things going for us, and I look forward to it.
Absolutely. And now my final question. What is your favorite, if you have one, your favorite call of yourself?
I don't have one. I don't.
I'll tell you mine after.
You know what? I'll say this. I'll say whenever I say hot damn, only because it's a reference to my mother. Okay. She would say that when we were kids, if we ever, on the rare days I had an academic achievement, she would get the report card or see the test. She'd, hot damn, you did it, Brian. I think I heard it 4 or 5 times. So I would say that's my favorite, only because it reminds me of my mom. My favorite is
it's funny now because he was a Clipper this year and we loved him, but the Kawhi dunk on Daniel Tice in 2019-20. I think you busted out a hello nasty on that one, but it was just the reason why is because I was a senior at UMass at the time, and that was the first Kawhi and Paul George game together. So, that was I used to always show my friends that dunk on Daniel Tice, and I even made it my wallpaper because I was going to school with a bunch of Celtics fans. So that moment was also, your first year as our play-by-play guy on TV, and just it almost felt like a passing of the torch, from Ralph to you, and then the era that represented, this is Brian's era, the Kawhi, Paul George era. So that Daniel Tice one is my favorite. The Kennard 4-point play is honorable mention.
That was pretty fun too. But that's funny that I remember the Kawhi dunk, and Chauncey was my partner that night. And I don't know if I ever had a moment to get excited like that yet on TV. And so I remember going crazy, and it was just pure emotion. I was fired up about it. And Chauncey just looks over at me, and he's like grabbing me to make sure that he's like, are you okay? Are you, because Chauncey is so chill. He's like, are you fine? Wow, what's going on over there? So I do remember that. And I think Kawhi was asked to describe that dunk. Do you remember what he said?
No, but I'm guessing it was short, sweet, and to the point.
Hey, Kawhi, can you tell us about that dunk? Yeah, I dribbled 2 times. I jumped really hard, and I dunked it. I swear to God, that is what he said. Now, wait, so you bring in UMass Pizzeria Regina's Pizza.
Is that in Amherst? Because if it was, it's closed down, I think.
No, it's all over Boston. It's the greatest pizza in the country.
Oh, see, you'd be surprised. I didn't go to Boston enough because Amherst was just so much fun.
It's all over Massachusetts. It's a chain.
I will make sure I go there now when I go back.
Oh my gosh. If I knew you hadn't done this, I wouldn't have done the podcast. My goodness. It's the best pizza in the world. How can you not know? It's so good. John's on Bleecker is a close second in New York, but Regina's is my favorite.
Next time I go visit my friends, I'm going to make sure we get it, and I'll send you a picture.
Please do, because I'm upset about this now. You need to make amends.
Brian, this was amazing. I thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time. Obviously, everybody can find you on TV, but let other people know they can find you on socials and stuff like that.
I don't tweet much, certainly not during the off season. At B Sieman on Twitter and at Hot Damn Inc. on Instagram. You can see how much I use that. But yeah, I want to say you do a great job. You really do. I appreciate the volumes of content and not just putting it out there, but they're well thought out. You do Monday. How many days a week do you do it?
5 days a week with this show, and then my own channel sometimes as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, especially when it was tough news, during that Maverick series and post Maverick series, doing the breakdowns. It's not an easy gig. It isn't. I appreciate those who grind, and you are grinding, and Clipper fans are better for it. So I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much. Absolute pleasure. Everybody, let us know what you thought of the episode, and let us know what you think of the entire discussion in the comments. Go Clippers.